October 14, 1928. Elizabeth was absent. Walter, through Mary in the cabinet, speaks. "Good evening. Where is my sidekick?" Meaning Elizabeth. "I can't get my hand on the throttle. Put on the gramophone." Golden Slippers is played. Walter, "I am very disappointed. We'll have to work from another angle." Dr. Hamilton, "Do you want any changes?" Walter, "No, some of her friends are here." That is, some of Elizabeth's friends. Dr. Hamilton, "Which ones?" Walter, "Quite a few. The gentleman, I gave you his picture. It is not what I wanted. We will get a real picture. I have not got my hand on the throttle. Elizabeth is my lever." Walter speaks of the other land. "It is more beautiful than anything I can say or that you have ever seen or will see until you come over." The medium is gulping. "I'm trying to get the ectoplasm. You can all go home." "Quite a lot want to take my place, but I won't let them. They, Stevenson and Livingston, are very interested. Spurgeon is very anxious to control the medium and give you some of his sermons. It is not detrimental to children to be present. My brain was not well developed. I have another brain. I am growing as you, mentally and physically. I have a body that grows and grows. The better I progress, the more it grows. I always retained a body. It will grow throughout until I reach the higher and be with the saints. You may live in the astral body 40, 50 years and not progress. I want to tell you sometime how I became able to come here." Walter voices disappointment at the partial failure of the Stead face. He says, "We will get a real picture." He speaks of the work. "It is very hard to convince Orthodox members of the old school." Dr. Hamilton, "Is it making progress?" Walter, through Mary, "Oh yes, it will make greater progress years from now, and your pictures will be in the front row, believe it or not, in the front row of confirmation." Dr. Hamilton, "I've borrowed this camera and have to return it." Walter, "You can borrow it again. Buy it." Dr. Hamilton, "I suppose so. It's not a quartz." Walter, "Any old thing will do. You're too damn particular. The old ones wouldn't believe you, not if you had 20 cameras. Even on this plane there are many who do not believe they can come back. It's very hard to convince Orthodox members of the old school." He talks on life in the spheres. His comments are not recorded. The bell rings 14 times. The power weakens. The bell again rings 10 times. Walter, through Mary, "Keep your hands off. Someone interfering." This is said to an invisible. Bell rings 18 times. Walter, through Mary, "I will try to give my light now. Keep your eyes on the medium. Do you see my light right up by her face? It is seen by some and not by others." Walter waved his light first in front of Dr. Hamilton and then in front of Dr. J. A. Hamilton. They both declare they see it. Walter, through Mary, "Even those who see it are hard to convince, and yet you expect those who do not see it to believe." He then talks about the number of sitters and arrangement, also guests. His comments are not recorded. Walter, through Mary, "I have a balance set up. I have members of the same caliber on my side. Don't make the circle too large." Lillian, "There is his light. Have you got your eyes open? It's been there all the time. Place the camera straight in front of the cabinet. If you could bring the camera a little closer. Do not be disappointed if you do not obtain the whole being. I have the cooperation of our little friend here," referring to Elizabeth. "A friend of hers will appear which will be a great proof to her critical friends." Dr. Hamilton, "Have you any objection to placing a camera close up?" Walter, "Not closer than 8 feet. There is more discussion re-camera position. You can focus above her head, but you better put her face in it. I will try and bring them as close to the ground as possible, but they linger in mid-air. That is why I do not wish the top of the cabinet disturbed. Be ready by next Sunday. Dr. Hamilton: well, I suppose you've got Houdini. Walter through Mary: oh yes, he'll come here before long. We do not bear malice, all is love. Houdini did not believe Marjorie a faker. He knew my sister was genuine, but he was like the rest, afraid to admit it. He will just have to undo what he did. It is wonderful to be able to come over to the astral plane and redeem yourself. I do not know how to explain or express these things to you here. Someone remarked that the light was not so bright tonight. Walter said it was a moonlight night. He tried to say, it's a braw, bright moonlight night, the night, in Scots. He succeeded fairly well. He speaks of his difficulty in talking through Mary. He says he cannot make her say words she never heard. With my own voice it is different. Walter through Mary: I will go now. So long. I have remained with you for a long time for a purpose. I have used everyone in the circle. I have had you just exactly as I wanted. The sitting closes at 10:48 p.m. October 24, 1928. Walter converses. He gives a little bell ringing. Says he is saving his power. The medium in trance stands up and for some time shuffles her feet in time to the gramophone music. We see a faint light near the middle of her body. After a considerable interval, Walter says, I suppose you want to know what I'm doing this for. Well, I'm preparing a screen for the next photograph. He went on to say that the ectoplasm would cover the medium's face and would give a picture of one of Elizabeth's friends. He refused to say which one. October 28, 1928. We tried a new record on the gramophone, one of the Jolly dance tunes. Shortly Walter began talking and ringing the bell. Then he suddenly ordered the red light on, as he said they were crowding in on him. He could not keep them back. They were silly spirits who wanted to dance. Walter seemed to be very much alarmed and afraid his work would be undone. He said the sitting must be closed at once. He damns things quite freely. He says he will put a guard around the next time. Editor's note: Walter appears to be afraid of damage done to his ectoplasm work by careless and curious interlopers into the circle on the other side of life. More lectures. The public, medical and laymen alike, are becoming more open-minded. He speaks to the Scottish Masons. Stead likeness is shown for the first time. November 1st, 1928. The usual Elizabeth trance writing and visions. Mary in the cabinet and Walter come through. He talked for some time on various topics. These are not recorded. Suddenly Walter called out, "Oh, go, 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 yes, you! Dr. Hamilton, put green here. That will do for tonight. Put the light down for a minute. Sorry, sorry. Do not join hands. Keep them out." Mary's chair moves back violently. "Everything right, but there are so many here, we must keep them right out. I'll arrange to keep a guard right around next time." A little fellow rang the bell. He just wanted to ring it. I had to take it away from him. Dr. Hamilton: "Do you know that Mary can't come?" Walter: "Oh, she could come if she was as much in earnest as I am. She would come. Nothing would keep her. Oh, damn." Dr. Hamilton: "This machine," meaning the medium, "doesn't work right." Walter: "Damn poor material." Elizabeth: "Where's your lantern?" Walter: "My lanterns are all ready." "Oh, those damn niggers. I go. So long." November 4, 1928. Hands joined throughout. Sitting commenced at 9:06 p.m. Usual Elizabeth phenomena observed. At 9:19 p.m., when Elizabeth is returning to normal consciousness, Mary is controlled by Walter, who speaks through her, conveying to the sitters the messages of Elizabeth's control. They are very angry for the order of the sittings having been changed, as it has upset their work. It is decided that for the first part of the sitting, the old order will be observed. the change that Walter requested being made before his work is commenced. Elizabeth then moves out of the cabinet, allowing Mary to occupy the central position. Walter asks us to sing. Someone suggests Jingle Bells, but this does not meet with his approval. There is a pause, then a sharp stab of the foot, and Walter utters a hearty damn. Walter, sing, wherever by faith I saw the stream. We do so, and Walter tells us that the gentleman who was there with him and whom Elizabeth saw clairvoyantly a few minutes previously is very pleased. We asked who he is and received Walter's answer, Spurgeon. Walter, now sing something. I don't care what you sing for me. I'm not so fussy. Yes, everything nice and fine. There's a beautiful guard of angels from the celestial lands. There will be no trouble tonight. He ascertains that the medium's hands are being held tightly. Mr. D.B. MacDonald is asked to come into the circle. Walter tells us that the circle can now be enlarged as we please, provided the 5 people now sitting to the right and left of the medium are retained. Elizabeth now relates her visions, all of which takes about 8 minutes. At 9:42 p.m., Walter employs his direct voice, stuttering and speaking with considerable difficulty, but heard by all in the room, though his voice does not rise above a hoarse whisper. I want you to hold hands tight. I want the medium to stand up and have you pass your hands over her face. Just use one hand. This so asked to keep the contact unbroken. The evidence of 1 or 2 must be sufficient. I can't. At 9:44 p.m. the medium stands. W.B. Cooper, there is nothing whatever on her face or neck. Dr. Hamilton, I can feel nothing on her face or neck. J.A. Hamilton, no, there is nothing on her face or neck. At 9:47 p.m. Walter's psychic lantern glows very brightly on the table. Everyone exclaims and stretches forward to gain a better view. Walter, don't look, don't waste your energy. It's a light, that's all. Does the gentleman want to feel across the table? There's nothing on the medium's face or on her neck. We sing for a little. Walter and Dr. Hamilton agree that the signal for taking the flash shall be 1, 2, 3, called out by Walter with the flash fired 2 seconds after the 3rd count. We sing again, the medium still entranced, doing a fancy tap step in time to the music. At 9:55 p.m., Walter calls out, ready? Have you got hold of hands? Yes. Walter, are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Flash fired at 9:55.5 p.m. He calls again for a second flash, but the cameras are not ready. He asks that next time the medium wears something to hold her hair back, as it may interfere with the picture. He said that it had fallen over her face with the movements of her body. We sing again for a few minutes, and then Walter asks for a pencil and paper in order to write a name. He is provided with writing materials and requests that the paper on which this name has been written be folded up and not looked at until the little lady, Elizabeth, has seen the picture. He says he has written the name of the person whose picture will be on the plate, and further that the little lady must tell who it is in the presence of witnesses. There was some conversation about the pictures and many jocular remarks by Walter, who loves to poke fun at one and all. Dr. Hamilton remarked that all intruders had been successfully kept out and wanted to know if the angels came from another plane. Walter, they come from the celestial plane. Dr. Hamilton, how does Spurgeon get them here? Walter, how did you know that it was he? The angels follow him in great bands. He had crowds on earth and he has them here. He is only on the astral. It is an answer to a prayer. These are they that have come through great tribulation and have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. They shall pass from praise to praise, from psalm to psalm, from hallelujah to hallelujah. Dr. Hamilton, who tells you that? Walter, John Clemens Plowman. Then, lo, I am with you always. Dr. Hamilton, who tells you that? Walter, David Livingston. Did you see all that light? I used a great deal of my power to produce it. Yes, we did. It was much brighter than usual. Dr. Hamilton, will you have your group here always? Walter, I can't tell. The angels work only in the spirit world. They are only a band to keep out the others who are not wanted. Spurgeon is not always with me and was here tonight for a purpose. He is very sentimental. He was a good man and is still, but he must work out his own salvation. He was a great man to see into the future, and he was afraid that he did not preach it. If only he were on earth now, he would. He has said that he would live on, and now he does a great work, helping those who are passing through. He brings his own band of helpers. Some night he will speak to you in his own voice. It is a great, great truth that has come up from time immemorial. When you are on the material plane, you know that your life is for a little while, but in this world you grow and grow. There is no death, but continual life until you pass through the pearly gates. This is given by an old gentleman. He asked me to convey his words to you. He says his name is J.S. He is quite grey, medium in height, of broad build, fresh-colored complexion, grey mustache cut short. He has not been here long. Dr. Hamilton, when he gives you this information, where does he get it? Walter, I am afraid you must ask him that. My work here is of one kind, his of another. Possibly he was a preacher on earth. Dr. Hamilton, did you know that Jack MacDonald was quite a medium, Walter? Walter, you are too. We all are. Jack MacDonald, is J.S. James Smalley? Walter, I cannot tell you. He gave his initials for the benefit of the gentleman on my left. I must go now. I have other work to do. Goodbye, everybody. So long. Immediately after the sitting, we adjourned to the living room downstairs. There, in the presence of all the sitters, the paper containing the name Walter had written, and which had been entrusted to Dr. J.A. Hamilton's care, was enclosed in an envelope and sealed. This was being done while Dr. Hamilton was upstairs developing the picture. About an hour later, Dr. Hamilton brought down the printed picture. Before the sitters, Mrs. Poole, Elizabeth, declared in the presence of the group the photo was that of Spurgeon. The envelope was opened and the paper examined. On it was found written, Charles Haddon Spurgeon. There's a handwritten note. Mr. D.B. MacDonald present with Dr. Hamilton in the darkroom while a plate was being developed and a print made from it. Spurgeon previously manifested to Elizabeth by deep transcripts. He revealed a personality who was deeply religious along evangelical lines. That is, he showed a deep devotion to Christ and his teachings. A religious atmosphere dominated the experiment of November 4th. The text was given of Spurgeon's last sermon. Walter's pre-statement made before the plates developed writes through Mary in trance the name of the individual whose likeness will appear on the plate when it is developed, Charles Haddon Spurgeon. Dr. Hamilton was greatly moved by this phenomenon. Aware of its unshakable genuineness, he saw that we had obtained interwoven objective and subjective evidence of survival. Walter asked, "Would you like to see some friends from the higher planes? I will try to get them. They are always willing, although it is sometimes difficult." "I will try it with the help of our friend Spurgeon. He is on the higher plane. He has passed through a high test. His work is vastly different from mine. He has a great deal to undo in your plane. The things he taught when he was on earth he must undo." This was said very emphatically. He must teach a different damnation, not the old fire and brimstone one. He did not believe it. He preached it day in and day out, but he never believed it. He always believed that there was a love without fear. He was not true to his convictions. That applies to preachers as much as to anyone else. The illiterate and the poor have a better chance up here. The more educated you are, the harder it is to unlearn. It is difficult to undo. It is the people who believe and know that have the easiest time. There are many who have been on the mental plane for years and years and have not made much progress. I cannot tell you why. I do not know these people. There are vast multitudes. I couldn't describe them. They are not congregated in crowds, for there is space and more space. But the little children here have the best time. If you on the material plane who have lost little children could only know how happy they are here. Dr. Hamilton asked, "How could you explain the fact that some people have a long life?" Walter answered, "I can't tell the advantage of a long life. We are here for a purpose. Sometimes the love of your friends on this plane brings you over here." An interesting comment came from Walter, made on October 21st, 1928. He and Dr. Hamilton were discussing evidence. Walter said, "Even on this plane there are many who do not believe that they can come back." He was referring to the ability to influence a medium. It's very hard to convince Orthodox members of the old school. November 9, 1928. Dr. Hamilton was speaking at noon today in the Royal Alexandra Hotel under the caption, "The Scientific Approach of Psychic Research." He tells the Gyro Club, "Psychic phenomena come under the ordinary laws of research, and the subject lends itself to a definite practical line of procedure and tabulation of attending developments in the same way as the study of botany or any other science. The skeptical and sometimes jeering attitude of the public toward this branch of study has been a real handicap," the speaker emphasized. "Nevertheless," he said, "research carried out on a strict scientific basis has reached a stage where it might be definitely asserted that a guiding and directing intelligence is behind the demonstration of phenomena. Such phenomena existed no matter what skeptics said. Furniture moved under conditions which were not explainable in ordinary ways. Ectoplasm could not be explained away when it registered its own form in plasticine or melted wax and could be photographed. These were manifestations which could not be disputed. Just the fact that such phenomena exist, which do not come under the ordinary terms of knowledge, and that they follow certain laws of their own, ought to act as an incentive to mankind to explore them rather than to scoff," the speaker said. November 11, 1928. Dr. Hamilton, "I had a letter from the chief." He was referring to Dr. Crandon of Boston. Walter, "He doesn't believe a word of it. I'm going to give you a picture of 6 people. Would you like me to tell you? I have Raymond to help me. He is interested in the mechanical side of the phenomena." Miss Turner, "A number of our pupils are going to hear McCabe. They say there is no God. What shall we say to them?" Walter, "Tell them there is no sun and no moon." Dr. Hamilton asks about a message given earlier. Walter, through Mary, "I gave that for Spurgeon, the preacher. It was wonderful. You know that when I passed to the great beyond, religion played no part in my life, none whatsoever. You have it, value it, for without it none can enter the pearly gates. I am working and trying, but it is hard work. Your younger generation will carry on the work." Dr. Hamilton, "I suppose there are those who would like to come and throw things about." Walter, through Mary, "Yes, they are curious, but they do not understand or realize. Princes and kings and clowns that caper in sawdust rings, they know no better than the beggars, and some not so well. It is not education of the material that counts, unless you bring in the spiritual too, and some are very hard to convince. As you sow here, so you reap in the beyond." Dr. Hamilton, "Will some not enter?" Walter, "All will, but it will take time. Do not listen to these boys. Tell them to trust in Christ, the risen Lord." Miss Turner, "But these boys are Jewish." Walter, "Poor boys, it will be hard for them." Mr. Cooper asks Walter if he knows that little Jimmy is in the room. Jim is 13 years old. Walter replies that he does, but warns Mr. Cooper that Jim's father was not supposed to know that he was. Lillian Hamilton asks Walter whether he has seen Jimmy's chum. She is referring to Arthur, the deceased twin brother. Walter replies that he has, and that he will give a picture of him sometime. November 17, 1928. Dr. Hamilton spoke at the Griffins Club. He answered questions for 2 hours. November 21, 1928. Elizabeth Trance and Writing and Vision Story. Walter comes through Mary and arranges about the placing of various sitters. Too much confusion. Just make 2 changes on the left-hand side. The little lady, Elizabeth, is to move to the 2nd place. The change is made. Walter through Mary. You want to get these paraphernalia up on the roof out of the road. Get a switch with a lever. It's not at all satisfactory. It may suit you, but it does not suit me. Dr. Hamilton, well, we are always improving. Walter through Mary, I'll stand aside for a little. The medium disobeyed. We sing vigorously, and Mary stamps her foot to pep us up, as it were. Walter through Mary, cease, cease. There is nothing doing now. I want to give you a few instructions. See that the medium is disrobed. Be exactly on time. Anyone who is not here on time, please do not admit them. I will try to bring your friends for you at the next sitting. I have 4 who will be with you, maybe 7. 4 are ready, others are not. I will not take any more time tonight. There are a great many people wanting to come in, but I do not want any to come. Loosen hands when I leave. Do not let anyone else come through. I must stand aside so that she can come back. I have used little power. Dr. Hamilton asks a question regarding the arrangement of the sitters. Walter through Mary. I do not want to be disturbed. Just 2 changes on the left. Please place a chair for the little lady in the circle and leave her own chair in the cabinet. Save confusion. I will not give a light tonight. Do not talk next time. Do not ask questions of each other. It is just to keep away inquisitive people. They do not mean any harm, but I can't keep them out. I have to take from each of you. I have the cooperation of a great number of people who help me. Otherwise I would not be able to produce what I do here. It is not of myself. We have a man in our company who visited the spirit world many times when he was on earth, W.T. Stead. It is through his help that I am able to give these to you. There is also another quite young man who also helps. Elizabeth, what is his name? Walter through Mary, guess. Dr. Hamilton, I know. Walter, yes, I think you do. Well, friends, so long. November 25th, 1928, 9:05 p.m. the sitting commenced. In 3 minutes, Elizabeth is in deep trance and commences to write 2 minutes later. At 9:13 p.m., Mary, entranced, is heard to say, Copperface, Copperface, you be good. Copperface is learning. Copperface, Copperface, stand by, stand by. Copperface seems to be creating a little disturbance, and he is sent away. We sing Old 100. Mary, under influence, very vigorously brushes off the table, saying, Shoo, no, no. She moves her chair and begins to speak. Keep very passive. I do not want. All right, all is fine. I will wait till after the little medium has given her experiences. I would like you to sing a hymn, and then I will bring my friends. Dr. Hamilton to W.B. Cooper. Barney, be sure she is in the middle of the cabinet. Walter through Mary. I have her placed in the middle of the cabinet. Do not interfere. When the little lady has finished telling her story, will you sing, There is a fountain filled with blood? Elizabeth then recounts her visions, and as she does so, Mary is laboring under great strain. At 9:35 p.m. we sing as was requested, and while we do so, Mary is under even greater stress than before. She is retching. At 9:37 p.m. the direct voice is heard. It is better than ever before, and though not rising above a hoarse whisper, is heard by all. Good evening, I am sorry. I could not keep them back. At the same time the light, Walter's psychic lantern, waves about in the top of the cabinet. It is not very large, but extremely clear and bright, like the dial of a luminous watch. Walter through Mary. Good evening, friends. I would like to shake hands with a gentleman. He shakes hands with Mr. Reed. All right, the light is floating about near the top of the cabinet. Walter through Mary. Go ahead with the story. W.B. Cooper. Oh, it's finished. Walter through Mary. No, it's not. She has dead, too. He gave you a message, not to my medium, but to the little lady, a message for herself. I could not tell you what it was. You are all too tense. Put on a little music. Push the button. Apparently Walter was cognizant of the fact that the little electric phonograph had been set up, which could be started with the turning of a button, although he had not yet been told of it. Walter through Mary. Have you got the medium's hands tightly? Cooper and Dr. Hamilton. Yes, Walter. Walter through Mary. Just a minute. Are you all ready? Walter to W.B. Cooper. It's all right, old sport. You're too expectant now. I would like you to go through the same proceedings as before. Is there anyone who would like to pass their hands over her face? Dr. Hamilton. I have felt her face and there is nothing on it. Mr. Reed, Dr. J.A. Hamilton and W.B. Cooper and Miss Turner also feel the medium's face and neck, and each in turn declares that there is nothing there. While they are examining the medium, suddenly the light shows in a most brilliant manner. The medium is under great stress. Walter through Mary. All right, there is a moment of silence. Walter through Mary. Sing something. Don't get so tense. We sing Jingle Bells. Cooper. The engines are going now. Mary is imitating an engine. Harry Green is in acute spasm. The medium beats time to the music by pounding with her elbows on the table in a violent manner. Walter through Mary. Ready? Ready? 1. Do you know about the signals? Dr. Hamilton. Yes, I'm to fire 2 seconds after you're 3. Walter. When I say 2, will those who have to duck, duck? Don't duck yet. To duck refers to the sitters in the line of sight between the cameras and the medium leaning forward to avoid blocking the camera. We sing again and the engine begins to go also. At 9:57 p.m. Walter calls out, 1, 2, oh damn, damn, get back a bit. At 9:59 p.m. 1, 2, 3. The flash is fired at 9:59½. At this point, Dr. Hamilton gets up and closes the shutters of the cameras which had just been used and prepares for a second flash by opening some shutters that were closed until now. Walter, are you ready? 1, 2, 3. The second flash is fired. Walter, oh, no more tonight. There is one of them that's not right, one of the cameras. You didn't get it the way you want it. It's not as good as I thought it would be. I've taken them both the same. I couldn't group the second lot. I used them both the same, but they are not very good. There are 2 you won't be able to recognize. There's too much ectoplasm. The conditions are not as good as I would like them to be. There is too much attention. You are too tense. Elizabeth, are there any of my friends on it? Walter, oh, you will recognize them. They are not very clear. I will give you Spurgeon and Falk. Dr. Hamilton, another time. Walter, yes, another time. If I gave you the whole astral plane, you wouldn't be satisfied. Dr. Hamilton, your light was splendid, Walter. Walter through Mary, yes, I have to keep it going to keep the attention. You notice that I didn't use the bells. They take too much power. Dr. Hamilton, is the box too heavy? Walter through Mary, oh no, make it heavier if you like. There is a new spirit form that has been hovering around for some time, a lady. Dr. Hamilton, is it the lady who wrote the other night? Walter, her name is Mary, and she says the medium's name is Mary. She says, great things will come to you. All great things come from very small things, and although this work has been going on for many years, it is here in the new land that the greater development will take place. Great oaks from little acorns grow. We sing in the sweet by and by. Walter, I will not be with you for a few more sittings, but I will leave someone to take my place. I will come back. I have other work to do. I can't be in two places at once. It will only be for 2 sittings, but I want you all to be here. Dr. Hamilton, well, I'm going up country for a couple of days. Walter, we can do without you. Elizabeth, I want to go too. Walter, I won't let you. Ada Turner, Walter, when I get so weary, are you using me or am I just sleepy? Walter, I use everybody, even the little fellow, referring to Jimmy Hamilton. Here general laughter follows when little Jim is discovered in the corner. Up to this point he has been as quiet as a mouse. Walter through Mary, your son is in the picture. I did not get them very good. I did not have them grouped close together. The 2 principal ones are crowded out, but I will have them. But we are just beginning. Tall oaks from little acorns grow. The cameras are too close and you are too closely congregated as a group. Have your group outside the cameras and have the cameras higher. Mind you, it's all right the way you are, but you can sit on each other's knees as far as I am concerned. Dr. Hamilton, oh, that wouldn't be so comfortable, I'm afraid. But Walter, there's a young lady here who would like to ask a question. Kitty Alder, Walter, had you anything to do with what happened in the room some time ago? Walter through Mary, yes, it's all right, and I'll get more yet. But don't be frightened, it's all right. It's only a little place I live in, but it is vast to you. Time and place mean nothing. Kitty Alder, then you did it? Walter through Mary, yes, and there is a nice time ahead of you, my girl. All that glitters is not gold, but remember there is no pretense of gold. You know what I mean. Yes, you know. You have to take the rough with the smooth, but it won't be very rough. I will help you along the hard places. I don't want you to think it will be hard. All work and no play is no good, and all play and no work is no good either. Editor's note. Many years later, Kitty Alder died in childbirth in British Columbia. Dr. Hamilton used her letter from Vancouver to make contact by automatic writing with Lillian in Winnipeg. Is this a tender and subtle hint that he already knows what Kitty will go through? There appears to be nothing in the entire Hamilton Notes collection that explains what Walter did in the room that Kitty is referring to. Dr. Hamilton, did you put the guard on tonight, Walter? Walter, yes. Dr. Hamilton, how many? Walter, oh, about 2 or 3 million. Dr. Hamilton, I suppose there are those who would like to come and throw things about. Walter, yes, they are curious, but they do not understand. They do not realize. Dr. Hamilton, well, Walter, what comes after the mental plane? Walter, I have not seen it. Dr. J. A. Hamilton, what comes after the celestial? Walter, I have not seen it. On the mental plane you get your education. You have to learn, but not with books and ABCs. There is a pause. Sing, please. We sing, There is a Happy Land. The medium starts to laugh and giggle, saying, oh, you're singing my song. The control coming through is Topsy, a young girl who is rather silly and who laughs all the time. She is sent away and we sing Jingle Bells. Walter returns. Walter through Mary, break. Dr. Hamilton, did you let Topsy in? Walter, yes. Break, please. Put on the light. I will go. So long. The light is turned up and the medium partially recovers consciousness. Then she sinks back and is apparently going into trance. She stands up with her arms folded across her chest and bows. Dr. Hamilton, is this Black Hawk? Black Hawk, good evening, friends. I am not here to talk. Dr. Hamilton, why did you come? The medium stands with arms folded. Then she makes passes in the air as though to ward off danger. Bowing twice, she raises her right hand in salute and gives a weird cry of farewell. All the actions are most dignified. The whole thing takes place in almost full red light. The signal, Mary counting. Teleplasm covers most of her face. Shows 5 small miniature face forms, lower left unmistakably a likeness of Stevenson, who had been communicating by way of deep transcripts and illustrating visions during the preceding 5 years, and had already given conclusive proof that he was a surviving personality. Other miniatures are not identified. The upper middle said to be Arthur Hamilton. The miniatures are too small for enlarging. At this point, Dr. Hamilton felt he was justified in drawing some general conclusions. These conclusions were that the materializing substance was largely the product of Mary Marshall's organism, that these supernormal products occurred more readily when the medium showed loss of normal consciousness, that the substance had cohesion, stability, and density and could assume different aspects, that the presence of the face forms appeared to have been brought about by the action of unknown psychobiological laws operating upon and within the substance after it had manifested objectively, that a face form might appear in 2 or 3 dimensions, that the teleplasmic face appeared to be a representation of, or better to be a reflection of, the face of a personality living at the time in a supersensible state of existence. That back of each phenomenon, supernormal intelligences appear to be at work independent of the medium's will or desires. That there appeared to be a group, analogous to the group in the physical plane, that sat with each other on the other side of the veil for the purpose of using one or other of their numbers as a medium to communicate with a physical group through one or another of the mediums in the physical group. The story of the coming of Mary Marshall as primary medium during the ectoplasm sittings is already told. She attended a few sittings in 1925 and 1926 and 1927, and then her full attendance beginning in January of 1928, and these in turn finally revealing the new control, Walter, and the coming of the bell ringing and teleplasms. Walter conducted the most important scientific work of the Hamilton Circle, the creation of teleplasmic pictures and artifacts which could be photographed with ordinary cameras and thus revealed to the world. When these photographs were published, there was no further doubt as to the reality of the physical phenomena obtained in the Hamilton Circle. And it became hard to deny that the origin of the photographs, their planning and production in the material known as teleplasm, could be ascribed to anything but the strong and continued efforts of living, conscious entities. They claimed to have lived on Earth and passed from that state into a finer state. From this finer state, they were insisting that they still lived. November 28, 1928. Black Hawk speaks of power of thought for good and evil. December 2nd, 1928. Walter, through Mary. Those who have gone higher will appear. This was fulfilled, apparently, by the appearance of Lucy and Katie on March 10, 1930 and November 12, 1930. Mary now stands and bows 3 times, left hand across her breast, right hand up. Cooper, good evening, Black Hawk. Black Hawk, good evening. I am very glad to be with you tonight. Paleface is not with us tonight. He is very busy. I do not know what he is about. That is his work. By and by he will tell us. It is for you here that he works. He is working with you, through you, and for those who come after you. You have to band yourselves together with the forces upon the spirit side of life. There will be a great work done by and by. I may tell you that you will see many of the good people from this side, those who have gone much higher than we, those who are guarding you. They must be shown by and by. I think in the picture, I do not know. I'm not speaking for myself. Will you please sing something? We sing, Draw Me Nearer. Black Hawk. A beautiful host of angels are listening. I will go now. Dr. Hamilton. Who was speaking before you? Black Hawk. Spurgeon. Dr. Hamilton. We would be pleased to have your picture, Black Hawk. Sometime. My face is very much like many other faces, not very good to look upon. He is laughing. Dr. Hamilton. Do your friends there know about our doing here? Black Hawk. Yes, we do. There is not a thought that leaves your brain but what we catch and pass it on, and it travels. If they are good, they reach good. If they are evil, they keep those who are evil from progressing. I go. I do not want to take away power. Black Hawk bows 3 times, right hand up, gives his farewell cry. Mary, now normal. There are a lot of people here. Some I can see, their heads. A lot as if they were floating. Some are in white, some are in blue. There is a gentleman, rather stout, standing beside your camera. His hair is white. It is not Stead. The man, oh, he's bright. I can't look at him. It's Spurgeon. He said his name just now. There he is again, examining your camera. Dr. Hamilton, tell him about the picture of November 4. Mary, he shakes his head as if he were pleased. Dr. Hamilton, tell him he is doing a lot of good. Mary, that's what he wants it to do. There is somebody with him. Someone here remarks that they wish they could see him. Mary says, don't wish, believe. All things will come in time. Lillian, our faith will help him, I suppose. Mary, yes, sister, he says, your faith is needed and your faith is great. Mary, oh, there's Walter. He says he's only going to look me over. He's not doing anything just now. Dr. Hamilton, we don't want to spoil any phenomena. Mary, he won't let you. He says he's bringing your friends. He has to go and get them. He didn't want to give me that message himself. He gave it to someone else to give to me. December 9, 1928. Walter speaks resize of faces. Walter, through Mary, asked for the district attorney, Pitt Blado, to be present at next meeting. Says he plans to give 2 teleplasmic faces. Wants Pitt Blado as a person of importance whose word would be taken in case any dispute might arise. Elizabeth Trance writing and visions. Mary's circle follows. Mary is not well, has a severe cough. No phenomena. Walter finally appears to her. She sees him busy. Mary reports that she hears him say, you are to have some. She listens and tries to hear. You are to have some. Mary says she cannot get it. A little later she says that Walter tells her that we are to have someone of importance at the next sitting, someone whose word might be taken in case any dispute might arise. Mary thinks she hears them say something about the district attorney. The control also gives instructions regarding the sitting. We are not to sing songs at the beginning of the Mary sitting, but to start with hymns. The songs come after. He says that he himself is not so particular. Any old thing will do for him. He goes on to say that Spurgeon's work is to guard, to keep back the undesirables. He, Spurgeon, is the chucker out. Walter informs the group that he hopes to give 2 photographs the next time, one on the first flash and one on the second. December 16, 1928. A district attorney is present, but there are no photographs. The usual group, Mr. Pitblotto present. He sits in the center of the group immediately opposite Mary. He acts as scrutineer. He examines the medium's face, sees that her hands are held by controls. A light appears, only fairly brilliant. Mary is still suffering from a heavy cold. The cough interferes with the voice of the control. The singing, stomping, etc., all apparently to produce the required energy. Note, Dr. Hamilton came to hold the opinion that this energy was produced by a breakdown of the cells of the body, probably the nerve cells. At 9:23 p.m. Elizabeth was in deep trance, and at 9:24 the writing automatism manifested. At 9:37 Elizabeth was back to normal. Mary, you are to let that little lady at the bottom of the room come into the cabinet. I'm to go out. My cough's too bad. Her guide will talk. This is from Walter. Just a minute, please. She becomes entranced. I think the medium will sit aside. Let the other lady come into the cabinet. You will hear something very much to your advantage. She can come straight through. I have my cords raised. Let my medium be put outside the circle. The gentleman, Mr. Reed, had better come too. Take the seat on the left. Just a minute, please. The change is then made, Elizabeth coming out of the cabinet and Mary moving forward into the center of the cabinet. The gentleman will come back next week. I will shake your hand. Here Walter shakes hands with Mr. Pitblotto. Then Mary starts to cough. 9:20, singing began with singing Unto the Hills. Then Elizabeth goes into a deep trance. The writing automatism manifests. At 9:37, Elizabeth is back to normal. Elizabeth then comes out of the cabinet. Mary moves forward into the center of the cabinet. Walter, damn, stamps his foot. Put her in a bucket of water. He was referring to Mary's cough. Dr. Hamilton, never mind, I'll give her something to help her. Walter, she must tie back her hair. She must have but one garment on. Please see that this is carried out. I am in earnest. It is a waste of time. Mary coughs again. Walter, I would like to have taken the cords from the box in like manner, but I can't use the instrument at all. The cold interferes very much. I am only showing the light for the benefit of the strangers. If you can return at the next sitting, I will do my best. It is the instrument. I am ready. Our friend is very anxious to talk to you. Mary coughs again. Dr. Hamilton, Walter, did you find the names of the other ones on the plate? At 9:48, Walter shows his light. He moves it around so that all in the room can see it. It shines with a fair amount of brilliance for about a minute and a half. Mary is now controlled by an entirely different personality who gives the impression of great kindliness and sweetness. She speaks in a very pleasant tone of voice. Friends, friends, it is good to be with you here. It is so nice to be able to come among you. W.B. Cooper, what is your name? Mary, I have been with you many times before. I am the wanderer. But, oh friends, there is a great work to be done. You are not here by chance. Nothing is done by chance. It is an inspiration. There are great crowds around you, watching, waiting, listening, trying to pick up a word here and there. Let your thoughts be pure and good. They carry as a pebble in the sea, further and further, and by it will sink into some little flower. Our friend who was here before me was rather boisterous, but he is so good. He believes in this work, my friends. It is very difficult for me to explain. Let your light so shine before men that they will understand what it is you seek. There is a great force of power here. Good night, my friends. Good night. On January 20, 1929, there were 4 photos taken, all showing Spurgeon in teleplasm from different angles. In the third Spurgeon face, the electric switch mechanism failed to fire the flash, and Walter said he could not hold the teleplasm any longer, so when the flash fired, it caught the teleplasm at the point of disintegration. These photographs proved that teleplasmic forms are biologically unstable. On May 1, 1929, the 4th Spurgeon face was photographed. In actual length, it measured about 16 inches from tip to tip, while its width was possibly 3.5 inches. On August 4, 1929, during the seance, Dr. Hamilton felt water dripping on his right hand, which was holding Elizabeth's. He counted 6 drops, then suddenly exclaimed, "It is perfume." Everyone in the group except the mediums, who were both in trance, smelled the fragrance of beautiful perfume on his hand and pervading the room. This perfume was an apport, a materialization sometimes encountered during seances. During the same seance, Walter through Mary spoke, "I want this medium to be called Dawn." Dr. Hamilton, "That is to be the name of Mary Marshall?" Walter, through Mary, "Yes, it is the beginning of a new light, a new day, and now she will be called Dawn." Mrs. Susan Marshall, an auxiliary medium who was also the sister-in-law of Mary Marshall, stood up and said, "Good evening, my friends." At this point, she was given the name Mercedes. This was the beginning of a process that Walter went through with each of the mediums who were in the Hamilton circle. Each received a new name at some point in their work with the group. On September 22, 1929, the Gladstone face materialized and was photographed. W.E. Gladstone was Prime Minister of England during the reign of Queen Victoria. It was stated that Gladstone was present to have his photograph taken on the invitation of W.T. Stead. Dr. Hamilton asked him whether Gladstone was a member of the group working on the other side, and to this he got a definite reply. "No, he is engaged in work of another sort, but he knows of your work and is extremely interested in it." Dr. Hamilton then asked about the beads which had appeared in the photograph. To this Walter replied, "They are not ectoplasmic, they are real beads. They were brought by the little black girl who sometimes controls this medium. She wanted to put them on for the occasion. They are hers. She took them away again." During the sitting of October 17, 1929, there came a poem dictated by Walter Stinson. A curve in the road. The way has been made more clear to us, it isn't so clear to you. For we're just a wee bit ahead on the road and the curve cuts off your view. Each day gives some help to your fellow man. Life gives you a chance to serve, and that way you become a part of the plan, with a glimpse of the road round the curve. And he would be chiefest among you all, the server who carries the load, for he sees in his heart from the very start the view round the curve in the road. And we think that this knowledge will help you on, will help you to carry the load, to know in your heart from the very start there's a view round the curve in the road. On October 27, 1929, the sitting brought the Mary teleplasm, and it appeared to be the outcome not of one sitting alone, but of those held on September 29, October 6, 13, 20, and 27. During the same sitting, Walter through Dawn also announced, "I'm going to try and build a material body in the cabinet independent of the body of the medium. Possibly it may take 21 sittings." The following sittings were devoted to collecting and storing the teleplasm, probably in the wood of the cabinet, for this coming materialization. After about 5 months of sittings, on March 10, 1930, Lucy materialized, and they obtained photos of Lucy head-on as well as of her torso. The prophecies about this materialization made months earlier were all fulfilled. It required 24 sittings instead of the 21 predicted. The form was mechanical, not a true body, but an imitation of a body. It was on a chair to the left of the medium, Mrs. Marshall. It was nearly as large as the medium's torso. It revealed the countenance of Lucy, as Walter had said it would. The form showed layers of crude teleplasm. In the words of the experimenters, the experimental conditions were watertight. The materialization was scientifically established as supernormal. For these March photographs, the usual precautions against fraud had been taken. The mediums were searched just before the sitting, as well as the sitters. Dr. William Creighton also examined the walls, floor, and ceiling of the rooms adjoining the seance room to satisfy himself that no means of access to the latter other than the main door existed. Mr. Pitblotto inspected each male member of the circle and the recorder to ensure that nothing was being concealed and carried into the room. These men took off their coats, vests, collars, ties, and shoes. Mr. Pitblotto and Dr. Creighton together examined the exterior of the seance room door, which was first locked, then also padlocked and sealed. The key to the door was produced by Mr. W.E. Hobbs, the key to the padlock by Mr. H.A. Reed. These were unlocked and the cord to which the seals were attached cut and retained by Mr. Pitblotto. Mr. Pitblotto and Dr. T.G. Hamilton then entered the seance room and inspected it. There was someone in the hall or room across the hall and in full sight of the door during the entire seance. No one entered or left the room until the door was opened and the people were counted again as they were coming out. These measures were generally taken before any seance that was likely to produce ectoplasm. Every effort was made to prevent any possibility of fraud by either the mediums or the other sitters. On March 16, 1930, the John and Katie King phenomena began. The captain claimed to be the pirate Henry Morgan, now going by the name of John King. On March 23, 1930, the captain's daughter, Katie, announced herself, and the group was informed that a ship would be built out of ectoplasm and it would be photographed. The building of these ships began. The group worked at producing the ectoplasm for this project during many sittings over a period of a little over 2 months. On June 4, 1930, after much preparatory work, the ship came into port, and it was badly damaged because of a misunderstanding about the exact time that the flash was to be fired. It was impossible to hold the ectoplasm in place firmly even during the short time interval. On the same day came this information. Lucy is of the same nature as your friend Walter, of no higher nature. Katie is a being of a different world. Have you not yet understood? She is passed beyond our knowledge. I don't know where she comes from when she comes to us here. As stated before, it appears that on the other side of life there are still divisions. Even two spirits present during a sitting may not be able to see or hear each other. It seems likely that the differences are of development, sometimes called vibration by spiritualists. On June 8, 1930, John King, Katie, and Walter began working on a second boat. They were not satisfied with what had happened with the first one. On July 7, 1930, a formidable champion of the belief that life and consciousness survive physical death died. Arthur Conan Doyle left the earth plane to continue his work on the other side of the veil. This time the preparations for the second boat took just about exactly 2 months. It was a different boat with no sails. On August 3, 1930, this second ship materialized and was photographed. From August 26 to 29 of 1930, the British Medical Association held its 98th annual meeting in Winnipeg, Manitoba, under the auspices of the Canadian Medical Association. Dr. Hamilton had worked vigorously to change the venue from Toronto, where it was first to be held, to Winnipeg. He seems to have had no idea while he was working for this change how this would affect his work with spirit. There was to be a hobby exhibit as part of the convention. Someone suggested that Dr. Hamilton place his photos on exhibit. He agreed. Lillian did a lot of the work of preparing for this exhibit. Then Dr. Hamilton was asked to address the convention on the topic of his psychic researches, and on August 27, 1930, he spoke at a luncheon meeting at the Fort Garry Hotel. More than 500 people heard his lecture and saw photographs of the teleplasmic structures. There was much excitement about the researches, and since the doctors had come from all over the Commonwealth, they took the news of his work back home and spread his fame around the world. The prophecy that had frightened him so much so long ago had come to pass. He had lost his fear in the meantime. Soon after this, on September 7, 1930, Katie King began her great work. Her face and veil were to be photographed, and the sittings now focused on collecting the teleplasm and storing it. Many sittings were again devoted to this project, and almost exactly 2 months later, on November 12, 1930, the Katie King face and veil were photographed. Very soon there were predictions of another materialization that would also be photographed. Work began on this materialization, and then after much work on February 25, 1931, the shining garment materialized and was photographed. In regards to this shining garment, the predictions that had been made about it earlier were again fulfilled. These predictions were that Mercedes' arms would show, that her clothing would not be seen but would be completely covered by Katie's garment, that there would be no fully developed head, although some of the views show what seems to be a partially developed head close to Mercedes' face, under supernormal veiling. It can be seen directly under the medium's nose. It is quite flat and the eyes are closed. Before the mass appeared and was photographed, Walter stated that the material would be seen to have folds. These various materializations, coming after predictions of their coming, and following so precisely what had been predicted about them, allowed no other explanation than that they were designed and created by intelligences. The best explanation, Hamilton believed, was that most likely they were what they claimed to be, people who had lived and died and were now working to convince the people still on the material plane of the truth of continued full consciousness after so-called death. Now automatic writings began to appear from Flammarion, the famous French astronomer. Space is not empty. The space between the stellar bodies is occupied. I will tell you more. Professor Astronomy. On June 10, 1931 came the teleplasmic manifestation consisting of the name Flammarion seemingly hanging in the air. Arthur Conan Doyle wrote a few messages. He had died nearly 1 year previously. Keep Mary in your circle as I wish to use her. Your circle is good. Doyle. There were also a few scripts on the nature of the spirit world. The script of March 29, 1931 reads, "The spirit world is not far removed from the natural world. In appearance, the spirit world closely resembles the physical world. The similarity is too startling for you to believe. The incarnate mind views spirit in the sense of intangibility as something like misty nothingness, when the truth is, spirit to spiritual beings is tangible and real." And another script on April 29, 1931 reads, "All mortals have their guardian angels, but all do not have a spirit guide helping them in the performance of a specific work. Where there is a great love, however, between the guide and the medium, where both have suffered much, both growing mutually strong in sympathy and in faith, then the spirit guide becomes a teacher of the medium." And now, dear friends, see to it that you live such lives here on earth as will bring you satisfaction in the hereafter. And another script. "I have shown a glimpse of one side only. There is another side. I have met many who are dissatisfied with their surroundings, and they have to admit they are just what they have earned. If you wish for happiness in the life to come, be honest, just, charitable, and Christ-like in the earthly or rudimentary state of being. From August 1931 to November 27, 1931, there continued the preliminary preparations for the second Lucy. Then on November 22, 1931, Walter's confidence seemed shaken, and he pleaded for more cooperation from the group. At this point he seemed very discouraged and also angry. Then on November 29, 1931, the long-awaited materialization appeared, the second Lucy. The second Lucy, a standing figure, was a materialization unique in the annals of psychic research. More materializations appeared. On April 3, 1932, the so-called dog-faced teleplasm materialized and was photographed. During the sitting of April 17, 1932, Doyle spoke through Mary Marshall. I am watching your progress. Your methods are different from mine, but perhaps they are better. I will put my picture through if your control will consent. Splendid work, good mediums. My life's work. Carry on. Keep the banner waving. He signed off with his name, Arthur Conan Doyle. On April 27, 1932, the hand simulacrum materialized and was photographed. Then on May 1, 1932, the first Doyle face materialized and was photographed. He had died on July 7, 1930, nearly 2 years earlier. During the sitting of May 18, 1932, the so-called cone teleplasm materialized and was photographed. May 22, 1932, as above, a teleplasmic cone, hand and face, tiny hand, spinning. On June 12, 1932, Dawn remained in trance after the seance had closed. Walter returned and begged Dr. Hamilton to have another sitting as soon as possible. Dr. Hamilton explained that his medium, Mary Marshall, positively refused to come again as she was tired and was going on her holidays. Walter then asked for paper and pencil, and by means of Dawn's hand wrote the following automatically. Mary Marshall, I want you to come here Sunday, the 14th of June, as it is very important, as this picture, he called the materializations pictures, will not hold any longer than a few hours. I can help you in another way if you come to me. Dawn, however, remained obdurate, and the sittings were, as the group thought, closed for the summer. A few days later, unknown to any other member of the group, Mary Marshall attended a sitting held at the home of a neighbor, a Mrs. Taylor. She went into trance, and Walter purported to speak through her and demanded that the Hamilton group come together again, saying that they were going to put through another representation of Conan Doyle, as they, the controls, were not satisfied with the first attempt in this direction. Curiously enough, Dawn seemed to be very much impressed by this unexpected plea on the part of Walter. She phoned Lillian Hamilton and made arrangements to carry on. As a result, 3 more sittings took place, one on June 19, one on June 26, and one on June 27 of 1932. During the sitting held on June 27, 1932, the second Doyle face was materialized and photographed. Through the years of working with the various phenomena, the Hamiltons had faced many challenges and difficult times, as well as times of renewal and encouragement. At times the sitters became impatient for new developments, and at others they lost interest. Some were always leaving and others were joining the circle. For good work, stability of the group was required, but there were only a few times when things were stable over any length of time. There were times when it seemed as if it became impossible to sing enthusiastically, as was often asked for, and the sitting suffered from lack of the energy needed to produce phenomena. At times Walter became impatient, at others angry and short-tempered, but always someone would come from the other side and smooth over the waters of the relationships, and the sittings would continue. Mary Marshall appears to have had problems with her husband. Although little is said about this in the notes, he seems to have discouraged her from attending the Hamilton work. They also appear to have had difficulty at times making financial ends meet. The income from the readings that Mary could give was cut back by the desire of the Hamilton group to stay away from any financial involvement with the psychic work. From the spirit side, she was often encouraged to give up the outside work. This brought times of friction and discontent. It is amazing that in spite of all manner of practical difficulties, the often bitter cold of winter travel after the work of the day, and the torrid heat of summer, icy autumn and spring streets, and the grime of the early 1930s Depression years, when great clouds of dust rolled down from the west and blanketed the city and gathered on window ledges and seeped in at every crevice, they still continued to gather year after year to amass proof of the continuing life beyond the grave. Houses before the 1950s were built with no insulation in the walls, and the little seance room was often cold in winter and very hot in summer. Winnipeg, Manitoba is almost exactly in the center of a large continent. The weather patterns follow the usual mid-continent extremes of heat and cold and relative humidity. Strong winds and heavy rains, and sometimes hail in summer, and sleet and winter blizzards are common, and there is no dearth of strong summer thunderstorms. Having spent 74 years in and around Winnipeg, I can state what every former resident of Winnipeg will attest to, that there is plenty of weather in Winnipeg. And then there were the times when experiences brought renewed hope and vigor and energy, such as when the Hamiltons went to England in the summer of 1932 and had a sitting with Mrs. Singleton. There they saw some wonderful materialization phenomena, and the Hamiltons went home very impressed and encouraged to continue on the arduous task that had been offered to them.